Alright, welcome to the channel, and today we'll be talking about this little guy, the iFi GoBlu. And right now I have it paired with my iPhone to my Stellias. Actually digging on the freedom that this allows, because I just literally let it hang off my neck here, and I mean, it's light enough to where it doesn't have any major pressure on the cords at all. Pretty darn cool. And this was sent out to me by iFi. They're not asking me to say or do anything other than my honest opinion with this lovely little device. So let's dive right into what it's all about. Right off the bat, it's tiny. Very tiny. Really digging on the form factor. As far as audio goes, it has that classic iFi kind of warmer sound signature. I really enjoyed it with my Stellias the most. Actually my Stellias are only headphones I currently have on hand that would actually pair with it without being underpowered greatly. My IEMs that I utilized for this were a set of Andromeda Golds and my Unique Melody Mest. I have a pair of these BG VP DMGs. But anyways, these are a bassy, fun little IEM, and they're actually really comfortable the way that they did the shell. So my favorite pairings with this have been these little guys, the DMGs, and my Unique Melody Mest was also top on there, but my favorite headphones to use with them was my Stellia. I'm sure like any of the Focals would actually work pretty good with these though, just because of their low power requirements. So setting this up was pretty easy. Basically opened it up, read this little manual, just a little pamphlet like deal. Between just looking at quickly like what the buttons did, easily got into it and started playing around with it. The iFi has this X bass and X space, which you utilize by hitting this little button on the side, and it tells you on the top indicator what that means, like which version you're in. When it's green, I believe it's X bass. When it's kind of teal color or light blue, it's X space, and if you hit it again, it kind of turns into this kind of mix of both colors, and that means it's both of them on at the same time. And that's pretty much it. It comes with a 4.4 and a 3.5 out. It also has a USB-C for charging, and you can also connect that to either your phone, iPad, computer, or what have you, but its main use is a Bluetooth connection, I believe is the main thing. And also something to be aware of is, though, even though it has that USB connector for it, it is actually always utilizing the battery, even if you're plugged in with the USB. So something to be aware of. Getting into the sound now. It's just a fun little device. I was really digging on it. Powered the Stellias just fine, more or less. I'm sure like a little more power would be nice to have with it, but it gets them loud enough, and for just kind of wandering around the house doing stuff, it's actually pretty cool. And I just let it dangle around my neck. Pretty fantastic. Like just being able to go anywhere and not have something in your pocket dragging on you or having it catch on something because it's just right there. Another cool feature with that, it has a microphone on it, so if someone was calling me while I was kind of doing errands or what have you, I could just answer the call, it would switch over, and the mic on the device actually would kick in. But for what it is, it's really good. Really impressed with it overall. Back to the sound, pretty much your classic iFi sound at the end of the day. It has a nice warmth to it. Didn't really have any issues with it, to be honest. Like across the board, I was pretty impressed. Like the highs were there. They weren't overly bright. I didn't have any issues with the highs. Didn't have any issues with the mid-range at all. In fact, I really like the mid-range. It has a nice slight warmth to it. And then the lows were punchy and decent, but a little more on the warmer side. I didn't really have any issues with bleed over at all. If you've heard an iFi Burr Brown device, it kind of has that signature to it, which is what you want. You want that consistency across the board. And I think that if you like iFi, you'll like this. It's just a more portable device for that kind of unique niche kind of deal. Yeah, the sound basically is kind of leans more warm than neutral. Pretty decent range in the highs, but nothing too sparkly in the highs. Is perfectly fine. There's no major issues at all as far as the range goes from what I heard. So the other thing, once you push into the X bass and X space, it adds some kind of unique things. So with X bass, you just get a more emphasis in the low end. You get a little more punchiness, a little more oomph there, a little more warmth. Mostly it's just like more of a punchiness to it. And then with X space, it kind of gives this a little more air and a little more expansion to the stage and to the highs, and pushes it out a little bit further. Pretty cool little feature. It's a fun little thing. You just hit the little button once to get X space, once again to get just X space, or you hit it 3 times to get both of them activated at the same time. For me, I kind of would go between either X bass or both of them activate at the same time. So that does add some of the cool, like kind of fun, like quick on the go. You want to get that little bass shelf in there. I think for something like this, that's important because usually if you're on the go, there's a little more noise, and when you get that X bass in there or that little bass shelf, it helps kind of drown out some of the surrounding noise around you, which is nice. Going into the build and aesthetics, I mean, the thing's plastic with a little metal plate front. The knob and dial, whatever you want to call it, is very nice. The buttons are nice and clicky without being overly mushy or anything like that. They're all just quite nice. I mean, I didn't have any issues with this at all overall for build, even though it is a plastic device, more or less. I mean, honestly, I'd be more worried about just losing it than anything else. So, I mean, I actually really dig on the aesthetic. It's just a really cool looking device. It has, I like that kind of, I guess it would be like a bronzed look and black. Yeah, aesthetically pleasing, and build is decent to pretty good. No major complaints there. The 4.4 and 3.5 work. I will note that the 4.4 is a tad bit noisy though. My Andromeda actually was almost not worth using because it was too sensitive and was picking up too much noise with that one. Whereas the Unique Melody Mest was a little bit more easygoing. It picked it up, but it wasn't as bad. The little DMGs, the little BGVP DMG little IMs, had no problem at all. And then if you went to the 3.5, it's almost not a problem with the at all. It's actually not a problem at all with the BGVP DMG. Say that 10 times fast. The Mest was still a little bit of noise, but nothing crazy. And in fact, it was even remotely an issue with the Mest on the 3.5, whereas the Andromeda still had issues for both outputs. So the Andromeda is kind of like a no-go with this, in my opinion. The Stellia for the 3.5, it was no problem, worked great. It had plenty of power. I'd had it roughly about like halfway on the power to get where I was listening comfortably with it. Didn't seem to have any issues. So could definitely use a little more power, the Stellia overall, just to get kind of its optimal performance, but for on-the-go listening and easy use, no big issue at all. In regard, no big issue, but it was fine. It sounded fine. It could definitely have a little more optimized power to kind of get it to its proper performance, but it's for what this is providing in the use case, not a big deal. And then that mic, it's just down on the bottom here. That's actually really cool. I was actually really impressed with that. Overall, this thing has been pretty awesome for its general use case and functionality. And another thing actually that's kind of a negative is that this thing's range is roughly about 20 feet, maybe right around 15 to 20 feet before it will cut out. So it has not the best range, but I never have my phone not on me. In fact, I even was pairing it with my laptop, my MacBook, and that was fine. We're really too much further away than 15, 20 feet. So that could be a naggle for some people, is that it does cut out roughly about 15 to 20 feet where it will just lose connection. But as soon as you walk back into that little like bubble of connection, it instantly picks back up and starts going again. So I thought that was kind of neat that it just instantly reconnected and went back to where it was. Some people were complaining that when you go to turn it on, it would have too high of a volume. So one of the things I would do is before putting anything in my ears, I'd always just lower the volume manually and look on my phone to see where the volume was. That way I wasn't putting them on and hit and play and having it be blaring just in case. But that's kind of should be a pretty standard practice for most people, just to protect your hearing. Yeah, so I think end of the day, pretty impressed with it. I think it's a cool, neat little device. One of those things it is its own little niche kind of product, but I think it's cool. Really, really small, super light. For what I like, it works great, and I love the little X-Bass and X-Bass features and being able to just quickly hit that and get that extra shelf in there and enjoyment and kind of like engagement, especially when just kind of wandering around or going for a walk or maybe at a coffee shop or something like that. So yeah, I guess that's generally my take on these, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers. Take on a little iFi GoBlu. iFi GoBlu.